So let's get right to it. Let's take a look at the pictures that are going to be in the Kohl's 2020 calendar. So this is the cover. This is gorgeous. So this is Eastern Bluebirds by Marilyn Burke. And you can kind of explain what we're seeing here, Richard.
Well, actually, you're seeing one of the reasons I think people like bluebirds in a way, because the male and female really participate in the raising young. This is a juvenile on the left, of course, and Papa on the right. And he's about to get, I can't quite tell what it is, but some kind of tasty morsel. And I'm sure there's 3 or 4 other of those birds around there somewhere close by.
I love how spotted they are. They're so cute, but they're not much smaller than the regular birds.
No, and at this point, I think they're showing their thrush heritage a little bit with a spotted chest.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
great
So
picture.
thank you so much. And this is a Northern Flicker for January 2020. The photo is by Jessica Day Perry. And we really want to invite all of you guys to make your comments about the photographs and to tell us any little insights that you have about these photographs. So go ahead, Richard. Tell us a little bit about this Northern Flicker.
This is a bird I really like. At a former residence I had a nesting pair there many years, and so I got used to these birds. A lot of people don't see them or don't notice them. It's a woodpecker, and it's one of our nice-looking woodpeckers, I believe. And they actually are one of the birds that, if you're observing them over a period of time, you may get a chance to see them do a special dance.
Really?
And you see some of the shorebirds and larger birds do bill wiping and sword play with their bills. These birds will actually do that as part of the courtship and other family functions. I have seen 3 or 4 of these right around each other, posturing and clicking their bills together and then freezing their movements and going back to it. Just a great little ceremony or whatever they're doing. And so I've always had a fondness for the flicker. And nice bird to have around. They will take the nesting boxes too.
Really?
Yes. Unlike some of the other woodpeckers, it's hard to get a nesting box. A flicker will take a large nesting box.
A flicker just says, whatever, I'm just going to take it, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to go on to, so we do have one quick comment. We're going to come back to this one real quick, Alex, but we have one quick comment that Ron Ballard wants to know when the cedar waxwings are coming and what he can do to put out some feed or anything to get them to come to his house.
What time is it now?
Why?
They'll be here probably, depending on where you are, in the fall is when you're more likely to see them. They're still dispersed for breeding, but they will tend to form small flocks and move around feeding in the wintertime, mostly on berries from bushes. So if you have a line of holly trees and you have other trees in your area that have a lot of berries on in the wintertime, you're going to see some if you just keep your eyes open. And a trick I learned a long time ago to realize whether it's cedar waxwings or not without getting a close look is to look at these guys when they land in a tree. If there's, say, 10 or 15 of them, and you see these birds up in a tree, typically, not all the time, but most of the time, once they settle in that tree, they're all facing the same way. I have no idea why. It seems to be what they do. And so you see all these birds sitting there instead of different looks over here, looks over there, and they're all sitting in pretty much in the same direction. And then, of course, it'll all come down from where they are, most likely, to a lower bush with berries in it and just take hold of it. I have holly trees on a fence line of mine, and they are in those. Of course, those are up higher, so I get to see them up there. I have some other berry-producing bushes down lower. They'll all come down at one time and hit those and then go back up. I love to watch those birds.
So we just need more berry. You need more berry bushes,
yeah, so
right?
you'll see them
Okay.
in the colder weather. They're easier to spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about February 2020. We've got Carolina Wrens, and this is a photo by Linda Robbins.
Yeah, that's a nice photo. The Carolina wren is we don't think they're again. It's one of those birds that's not super colorful, but they're really neat. You can get them to nest around with different things. I use an old, basically like one of the bags you use at a grocery store. I have it stapled to the side of a house under the eave, and I put an old piece of coat hanger down inside of it to keep it from closing up flat, and put it at an angle. And every year they go in there and build a nest.
Aw.
And so I like them. A lot of people find them in their garage in a little basket or something back in the corner. They'll sneak in and out. So they're nook and cranny nesters,
Yeah.
and they're kind of cute.
Now, this is a male-female, right? Or not a feeding baby, or not sure?
You can't tell.
Yeah.
This is one of the birds that the male and female really look alike.
Yeah.
And so once the baby's out of the nest moving around, sometimes if you still have a little bit of the yellow on the bill, real close around the bill, it might be a little wider and a little more yellow because it hasn't filled out yet completely. But other than that, they're the same looking birds. And once the babies are out, as with many of the birds, they're almost the size of the adults anyhow.
Yeah. I love that feeder, too, and that picture. So now we'll move on to March. You gotta love this. Northern Cardinal and a Downy Woodpecker. And the photo is by Michelle Bridgeforth. And we have to thank Michelle. She is always participating in our contest and has beautiful photographs.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad to see something other than just the adult male cardinal
Yeah,
in a
and you know,
picture.
I think the female cardinals are just beautiful.
They are. And even if I was picking the calendar picture, I might just choose the male. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But somebody was smart enough in our staff to pick this one because, and I'm glad they did because it does show the female. And then right next to it, there is a downy woodpecker. It looks almost exactly, unless you get really into those woodpeckers, almost exactly like the hairy woodpecker. And the difference is the downy's a little bit smaller. Shape, the colorations and the wing bars and all are close to each other, but the bill on the downy doesn't look like a woodpecker bill.
Right.
It just looks like a small bird's bill.
Now,
Actually,
what would you think if there were a caption to that picture? What's going on there?
I think each one of them's just a little intimidated by the other.
I think that woodpecker's like, back off.
It could be. It looks,
this is
looks like
mine.
it looks like it's got his top knot up a little bit, like don't mess with my seed.
Yeah,
But,
like I'm claiming this.
Yeah. Now, if that bird on the right were a hairy, the bill would look, like I said, a little bit longer. It'd almost be the length of the width of its head there. So one way to tell the part between those two birds.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a great picture, and I love how close up it is that you can really see in their face. This is a brown thrasher, and the photo is by Dory Dice, and that is beautiful. Love the colors in that.
Yeah, that's a nice bird. It's a state bird of several states, Georgia included. There again, you can see the streaking on the breast. That's a group of birds that a lot of them have that type of streaking on the breast. It's just a gorgeous bird, very handsome. Male and females look about alike, so you can't tell the difference. Just you can see these birds. They get confused sometimes with a couple of the other birds, but these are decent-sized birds. They're a little bigger than some of the small warbler-type birds that may have some coloration like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture. Let's move on to May for the eastern bluebirds. Oh my gosh, what do you think of this one?
Well, there's the rest of the young. And 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 young coming on. They're decent age. They're getting up there. And they all have their mouths open waiting for a handout. And it looks like someone's feeding them dried mealworms.
Yes, it
And
does.
so I bet you they're Cole's
Now,
dried mealworms
that's a
too.
pretty big brood, right? 5?
That's about right. 4 and 5 is a good number. 6 gets pretty big. 3 is a little small. So we see a lot of times 5 is a great number to say. If you go, how many are you going to have? It's probably going to be 5. So when you're monitoring your bluebird box and you want to know what the schedule is going to be, you start watching. You get the first egg, and then you check daily. Those birds will not sit on the eggs until the last one's laid. So they want them all to hatch at the same time as opposed to sequentially. So they won't start incubating with the first egg. So you just count and say on day 5 of laying, they've got 5th egg, and you come back to day 6, there's still only 5 eggs. Mark that on your calendar. From then you start counting, and you're going to look at roughly 2 weeks, maybe 17 days, 18 on the outside, 14 on the 13 on the quick side. They're going to hatch. A lot of it depends on temperature.
Yeah.
And then they'll start feeding. So you can get some idea what's going on. You can look in there every now and then. And then once they're young and they're in there, you can check them every now and then too. We've gone over how to do that before. But once the young get up to beyond 10 or 11, 12 days old, just leave the box alone because they may
Yeah.
jump out on you a
Right.
little early.
And I love Dad's look on his face is like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
got a lot to do here. With 5 ones all yelling at him to be fed. One of the things I love about the calendar is I think birds through them is such a beautiful way to see the seasons. And I always
Yeah.
think, at the beginning of spring, how beautiful it is to see the bluebirds come and start
Yes.
nesting and having their
Yes.
their babies. So thanks to Marilyn Burke for that. Now let's move on to June. Let's see June's picture. Love this.
Oh, there we go.
Baltimore Oriole by Berlin Pullen. And so what do you think is going on there? Maybe looking for some insects?
It probably is. It could be looking for berries. It could be looking for pieces of fruit. It could be looking for a tasty insect. Probably where it's at is probably an insect. It would be looking for there.
And as bright as it is, that's the male, right?
It's a male, yes. And
Yeah.
that's a nice bird. I wish we had more of them nesting here in the deep south, but we don't. We see those further up in the nesting season. We see them passing through, which is nice. And it's an interesting bird, very colorful, and I see one every now and then, generally, like I said, in migration. It's always
Yeah.
a thrill to catch one going by.
And we do want to remind our viewers, just feel free to make comments about the pictures or comments about where you're watching from. We'd love to know if any of our photographers are watching. We'd love for you to make comments and provide us with some insight about your particular photograph or one maybe that you like. So, and you can always ask Richard questions. He's here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock. To be able to answer your birding questions. So please make this interactive. We'd love to hear it. And we do want to remind you, if you share out the broadcast, you're eligible to win Cole's new hummingbird nectar. So that announcement aside, we'll go back to the beautiful pictures, right? Tell us about this, Richard.
Well, that's a hummingbird,
It's
obviously.
a black chin hummingbird.
And it happens to be a male. You can tell because it's got the whole dark head, and it's called a black-chinned hummingbird. That's a very special bird for me.
Really?
Very quick, we're going to talk about hummingbirds a little bit, but 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was known that in the east of the Mississippi River, you had the ruby-throated hummingbird. That was it. That's all you had. In the western U.S., you had the black chin and the rufous further west. That changed with research that was done. I was lucky enough to get to participate in a little bit of it. And in fact, I was credited with finding the first black-chin hummingbird in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
And it was around Christmas time, actually. It came to a feeder because I had my feeder out. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it showed up. And what we had learned over this time with a lot of research is when the birds start moving south, all of them don't go south to Central America. Some of them go straight east, some of them go southeast, end up down into Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina area. And they spend the winter here. And they
Yeah.
survive here without big trouble.
Wow.
And we get them coming back year after year because we catch them, check the band, or
Yeah.
put the band on them, and subsequent years they come back, yep, it's a banded bird, it's the same
Yeah.
bird. We see them living 3 or 4 years, which is a long time,
Yeah.
at a feeder in the wintertime in the southeastern states. I'm sure that happens in other states. We know there's been sightings in New Jersey and other places further north. We don't know as much about how well they survive up there as opposed to where it's a little more temperate down here. But yeah, they're here. But that bird was special for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take one more quick look at it. I love all the different colors in this. What were you going to say? And this is by, let's see, Marla Spritewell. Go ahead. I'm
And
sorry.
in this picture, it is a male. We're going to talk about this again in just a little bit too, about the whole head's black. And it's called a black chin. Well, actually, part of that front of under the chin area is actually purple. You just
Really?
don't see it. It's like under the ruby throat, it's ruby red.
Uh-huh.
Well, not necessarily. It depends on how the light hits it. It is iridescent. So right now, you're not seeing light being reflected off of it, so you don't really get the strong hint of purple. But part of it right under the chin is black.
You can see it though a little bit.
You can
looks
see
like
it a
you
teeny
can.
bit, yeah.
Uh-huh.
If it was really lit up, it'd be a strong,
Yeah.
bright purple. Halfway up to gorget, which is that area under the bill. The rest of the way up toward the mouth area is, in fact, black.
Wow.
It's a black
What
chin.
Yeah. What a great
Male,
picture.
of course, adult male.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this little guy in August. Love the colors of this lazuli bunting. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that color.
And
this is by Lindia Radis.
yeah, that's more of a western bird. You're not likely to see any of them around here. You could. It's all everything's possible with birds. That's what part of the fun
Yeah.
is. But just a nice. There again, it's one of the birds that's not that super strong saturated color. It's just mild and pretty. Just a cute bird.
And is that a male, do you think?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So because those colors are that bright, you can tell that. And what a
Basically,
great
if
way
you're
to
looking
see
at a female,
August.
lots of luck knowing what it is.
Well, yeah, because
'Cause
they're
it's-
designed to blend in.
it's not gonna look like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of how they're designed, right? So let's go to September. And this is the ever popular, you always see the goldfinch, American goldfinch in the photo by Kathy Desolé. And she's another one that is always entering our contest. And we so appreciate her. She has some beautiful photographs of birds.
And this, is, of course, is an adult male. And by this time of year, maybe October, November, that bird right there will not look like that anymore. It'll go through
Really?
most of its feathers, and it will actually look more like the female. If you've seen the more drab birds with these guys in little
Yeah.
flocks, the female's not nearly strongly that colored. And so the males and females look almost identical during the winter months. So right now it's still in breeding plumage around here because they breed later in the year. They don't get started in like March or early April. A little bit later in the year, they start their broods.
Yeah.
And probably time for something of their favorite foods out in the fields.
And it was eating there, it looked like black oil sunflower seeds,
Yes.
right? And is that one of their favorite things to eat?
They like sunflower.
Yeah.
They love sunflower, and they're able to, because of the bill, it's more like a
Pop it.
finch. It can
Yep.
they can crack those shells without any trouble.
Yeah, it looks like he's quite proud of that.
Yes.
Like, look what I got to eat. So let's go to October, where we see the always popular but surprisingly female here,
Yes.
right? Northern Cardinal by Jane Walker. Jane loves her cardinals.
Yes, and so we're not going to just show all the males this time. We're going to spread this out a little bit, give
Yeah.
everybody a shot. But that's a pretty picture. It's a pretty bird. It's obviously in a backyard, and I can just picture looking out the back door, toward the swing set or whatever, and there this is sitting here looking back at you. And nice bird, nice
I know,
picture, nice
they're
composition.
So cute, I think. So Ron Ballard, we can come back out for a second if you want. Ron Ballard has another question for us. He says, we see ruby-throated hummers mostly. Are there other hummers throughout the Southeast that maybe we just are not seeing? And if so, is there anything I can do to draw those elusive ones out? And I know we're going to talk about hummers a little more later, so you
Oh.
can save it if you want. But
Let's
you can.
save that
Okay.
one because we're going to
Okay.
talk about that actually in just a few minutes. We're right past the calendar. Hang on, Ron. There
Ron,
we
stay
will get to you in
tuned.
just a moment.
We will get to it, and we do appreciate it. Jane Walker, she has something.
Oh,
I do love them indeed. Was on the courtyard when I saw her. I know, and Jane always enters her pictures, and she always has great cardinals. And I know she has a lot of feeders out there to get some great pictures. Thank you, Jane. She's
Yep.
so cute, isn't she?
wow. Yeah.
So November 2020, that classic. Could you have a calendar without this?
Yeah.
This is by Michelle Bridgeforth. I love how the chest color and the background color are so much the same in this. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. It looks like he posed for the picture.
I
That's
know,
a nice
doesn't it?
family
Yeah.
portrait right there. Good, clean-looking
Yeah.
bird. The feathers nice. I love you can get the good shot of the eye ring right there.
Mm-hmm.
And these birds, kind of the harbinger of spring in a way. One of the many that we
Yeah.
also see them coming back into our territories
Yeah,
very early in the year.
it's beautiful.
Working the yards and lawns for worms and bugs.
And Michelle, again, thank you. She also, just like Jane, is one of the people who participates in our contest often, and we love the pictures. So now we're going to go to December. We're almost done.
Oh
This
yeah.
looks like a Christmas card to me. This is
Yeah.
Morning Doves by John Hayward. Love this picture.
It could well be a little pair, and
Yeah.
it's just pretty. There again, the composition is great. Good job, and they're sitting out there soaking up the sun, getting ready to come over to a feeder.
Yeah, you and I talked earlier about how there's sometimes people make jokes about them, but they're wonderful. I love to.
Yeah.
I always put food on the ground because they are ground feeders. They're most comfortable there.
Yes, they
So,
are.
So they are beautiful. And then we'll move on to January
Oh,
2021.
there we go.
And there, you gotta have one.
Yeah.
Mail calendar, just absolutely gorgeous. I said mail calendar. Mail cardinal for the Kohl's calendar. And the photograph is by Patricia Walengevich. And that is beautiful.
This is your bonus bird
Yeah,
for the calendar. Get
absolutely.
bird number 13 or so, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
and
month
nothing
13.
depicts winter better than cardinals, I think. Just this
Right.
bright beauty in the middle of kind of desolate.
Especially in snow
Yeah.
scenes, you see them pictured there a lot.
Yeah,
Great,
just
great,
gotta love
great
it.
shot there.
And John Hayward tells us, yes, this is a pair. So
Yeah.
you were absolutely correct. That's a couple. And then Jane Walker's also congratulating Leslie Post. So thank you all. The calendar is available now, isn't it? Didn't you say it's out right now?
It
But
is
it's not. It'll
out.
be
How widely
soon.
distributed it is, I mean, it's
You can
just
find it on
finished. It's going
Amazon.
out now. Amazon probably has them already. I'm
Right.
not positive about that if
And
they're
you
up
can
there yet. But
Check the website always,
Yeah.
coleswildbird.com.